Thank you for joining me today on the Private Investigator Experience podcast. I'm your host, Bill Little. We're going to dive into one of the hundreds of types of cases we get to help our clients with. They want solutions and peace of mind. On this channel, we talk about the life and times of a PI, starting with my days as a young Hollywood PI, and then I went out around the world where I got into international cases, counterterrorism, and global intelligence gathering. So we're going to cover the whole gamut in this over time as we look at different types of cases and interview various experts and others in the law enforcement intelligence service or counterterrorism activities. Today's is a case that is part of the society's breakdown. It really points to that. Family structure has deteriorated dramatically in America over the last 30, 40 years. And we worked hundreds of high-stake child custody cases where the children's safety was at risk, and the family courts were slow to give the mother or father relief from real problems. And in this case, it was a mother who had a problem with the father. I approach this case in every case we work, from my military, law enforcement, intelligence service, global security, and then I just had a touch of my biblical worldview to find solutions for our clients. My day at the office would start early. I would have a morning staff meeting to go over cases that we were working on and who was doing what and the activities of that day. So we had everything lined out. After this meeting, I was sitting in my offices on a Thursday morning, and my assistant buzzed me and said, "There's a woman on the phone who wants to talk to you, and she's very distraught." I picked up the phone and introduced myself and asked, "How can I help you, ma'am?" Her voice was very emotional, and she was holding back sobs, pointing out that her children, 3 and 5, were at risk with their father, who was using drugs and into all kinds of stuff. And he was having another unsupervised visit to his weekend custody the upcoming weekend, which was tomorrow, Friday. There's so many of the cases we get, no matter what type they are, they come at the last minute. And we don't always have a lot of time to improvise. So we have to be prepared at all times to react quickly. I spent some time calming her down and told her we could help, and we've done hundreds of child custody cases, and all I needed was some information on hers, and we could figure out what the solution should be. I asked her who her attorney was, and she told me, saying he told me to call you. Her attorney was someone I knew pretty well, and we'd worked a lot with him. I asked her what court she was in to see if she was in San Fernando Valley Court close to us, and she told me that she was in the Beverly Hills courts. One of the reasons for the court was to find out who her judge was, as we had profiles on many of them, so we knew how they dealt with this kind of child custody issue. Some judges are tough and swift and act when they have solid facts, and then others, even when the facts are there, they're slow to curtail unsupervised visits. This is the reason you hear so many cases of gunshots, of people attacking each other. They just get so frustrated with the courts, the legal system that drags on and on and on in child custody or family law cases. Judges hear so many claims against the other parent that they get very skeptical about them when many of them turn out to be unfounded. They're just mad or angry or upset. So when there's a real one, you've got to have the facts to get to that. So since this was Thursday morning, and the father was picking up the children within the next 24 hours close to it, we had to move fast. The client was a high-profile person in Southern California and into Arizona. And when I talk about budget, she said, "There isn't one. Just keep my children safe until I can get the custody changed." I called my investigation chief in and put him on the speaker with the client so we could get the information on her address, the father's address, any cars he might be driving, or locations that he's known to go with the children after he leaves the house, so it could give us a heads up. The last statement was to me, "Don't lose my children." And oh, by the way, my husband is a wild driver. It's just what I didn't want to hear. I told her I would come that afternoon at 1 o'clock pick up all the information and the retainer check. Hung up. I gave some directions to my team, which they already knew. We were going to put 3 surveillance cars on this case. One would be a female agent ready to a different look, fast, in case they stopped at a park or some location where she would have a chance to follow close and see what's going on with the kids, just being another tourist. I picked up the phone and called our logistics chief and told him we would need the helicopter tomorrow at 10 a.m. and get with the investigative chief to coordinate locations and make sure radio communications were established between cars on the ground and the chopper. I told him make sure the chopper is fueled and able to stay with the subject in case he decides to go around before he goes home. The client also said that he would sometimes go to a park. He also had a girlfriend who was an apparent drug user, and she was living with him at the Marina Del Rey apartments where he lived. I knew that location, and it was a high secure location with many high tower buildings, and it was going to be difficult to see him in the home environment, almost impossible. We're going to have to get creative. At 1 p.m., I went to the Beverly Hills home of the client, spent some time getting to know her and to glean any other information that she might have, and to let her know that we were going to keep her kids safe. She said on occasion the ex had taken off to Palm Springs for the weekend or Arizona just to pull her chain. That's great. Makes things difficult for us, but we're private eyes. We have to be prepared. On the way back to headquarters, I reached out to a friend who had been the head of security at the Marina condos to see if he still was at the condo, and he was. We caught up on our last conversation, and I told him I had a very sensitive case and it involved someone at the condo, and I arranged to see him on Monday of the next week to discuss with him. When I got back to headquarters, I called the team together. They briefed me on the preparations, told me the agents they were using. Our female agent, who was an actress that worked for us on these types of cases, it's very attractive. It would be great to make contact with the father out in some open places, since the mother told us that he was a ladies' man and would be attracted to any pretty face. This case went on for several weeks. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to summarize the tradecraft that we used on this case, the tools that we had to work with, how we used them to bring this to a successful conclusion. And unfortunately, we don't have these tools on every case that we had on this one. I sent the team lead of our surveillance agents to the client's location to do the advanced work where the clients would set up and be in position to follow. On the tail, we would be using a rotation method to keep the target from seeing the same car and not letting him get a full view of the cars. In tailing, you want your subject to only see the front part of your car, never get a full view of it, where maybe the color or something about the car would stand out. Also, on tail cars, we use very discreet, dull cars, or grays or blues, something that would blend in and not stand out like a sharp red, black, or yellow. Definitely not. So we wanted to be discreet in that area to keep our security as tight as we could. Tailing is an art, and it comes with a daring personality, lots of experience. When people ask me, what does it really take to be a private investigator? I think basically what I tell them is that it's 50% experience and 50% common sense. So this tailing is part of that. It's just experience. On Friday morning, I was at the client's home, watching the setup of our agents, and I was going to watch the father pick up the children and tag along to see how tail was going. I was also concerned about the chopper and having them get eyes on the car, or in LA traffic and in these wind around streets, running down the Beverly Hills, lots of trees and streets would just disappear. We couldn't see the traffic. We wanted to make sure we had it all covered. Unfortunately, we didn't have a big red neon X on top of the car. Information we wanted to see on this first day was how he was driving with the children, and to get videos of that. Our chopper pilot was an off-duty LAPD, and we had a spotter with a still and video camera with a scope that would bring the car to life. He showed up a few minutes late with a white model black BMW 7 Series. He looked a little messy with his appearance. He had shorts and flip-flops and hair all over the place, and he looked like he'd had a late night. The chopper had gotten to the area and was circuit high enough to not be noticed, but with the scope, he got a vision on the car, and there would be a lock-on behind the spotter. He got the children and put them in the car seats in the back, jumped in the car, and took off like a bat out of hell. Oh, this was going to be fun. But I had one of the best tail guys in Los Angeles on this team. He'd been a legend in the LA police world at tailing, and he was our lead agent. And he had been known on a one-man tail to follow a car all over Los Angeles all day and not losing. I was hanging back listening to the radio and the chopper giving updates to the vehicle location. He was heading for Marina del Rey after he left Beverly Hills and got on the 405 South. At Venice Boulevard, he turned off, headed towards the marina. About a mile off the freeway, there was a park. They had a dog park with it, and some open areas and benches and kids' play areas. When the chopper saw the location, the pilot told me that the LAPD had been watching this park for drug activity. The subject stopped and parked the car, got out with the kids and started walking around. My female agent was ready for anything. That's another thing about a PI. You need to be equipped to change your appearance. And she had shorts under her slacks, so she pulled the slacks off, had a tank top under her blouse, and popped that off, put a hat on, and drifted into the park. Now she was one of the locals. The agent had one of our hidden cameras, which was built into a fanny pack. She was wearing around her waist, and it was a very wide angle, so everywhere she looked, we were getting good videos. As she walked around, she observed a lot of homeless and young hippie types with drug use all over them. Not a place for kids or families. Our target was greeting people with their names, and it was apparent he was known to them. He sat on the bench with his girlfriend as several people approached him, and we were watching to see if there was any drug buy activity, but we couldn't see on this occasion. The children were playing on a swing set, and our agent was able to do some interaction with them. They stayed at the park for about 30 minutes and then left and went to the Marina condo. I went in through the security gate. It's just a complex, as I mentioned, with several towers, so there would be no way to get inside to set up surveillance and see what he might be doing inside the complex. We left the 3 surveillance agents there, went back to the headquarters, and we did some brainstorming. We had to get creative. What could we do? Well, someone suggested, why don't we just rent a condo short term? So we'll have the eyes inside the building to move around. Oh, that sounded great. But how to do that quickly? I picked up the phone, called the head of security, told him our dilemma, what was at stake. I gave him the subject's name and unit number and said, how close could we rent a unit to his? On hold. And he came back in a few minutes and said, how about a condo right across from his? It is empty, and you can have it. Wow. This was a small miracle. And in answer to some prayers, I think we'd been throwing up for help. I said, when? Then we did it. He told me he'd do the paperwork. Since I was already known and there'd be no issues, and come down, get the keys and the vehicle access that afternoon. The only reason we had this tool in our toolbox of options was due to our client's financial ability. And in most cases, the client does not have the ability. And that is heartbreaking for, as in so many cases, we have real child abuse, but we don't have always all the tools we need to be able to prove it where a court will accept it. As I gave a big thumbs up to the team, I said, we'll put the female agent along with a second female in the condo to become the subject's neighbor. I'm going to give a summary of the next few weeks as the agents working on this case, these 2 female agents, and they brought some other girlfriends in and would be partying around the pool when they were out there and created all kinds of interest and friendships. And I'm going to give just some different techniques as part of our trade craft that brought this case to a successful conclusion. My 6th that evening, I met with the security chief and picked up the key and got access to the facility. I had our surveillance camera installer come to the condo, and so we set up pinhole cameras through the wall to view his front door. So when anybody coming and going down the hall or out of his door, we would see it. I had it hooked to a monitor in our unit. By 6 that evening, we had a setup done and both agents came with their suitcases moving in. We checked out the pool area and it was a large area with lots of activity. This is a young type condo facility and a lot of entertainment people lived here. And there were all kinds of girls running around, skimpy bathing suits. Our girls would be able to fit into that environment, which might be something to open some conversation with the father. Now, to set the bait on the hook. The girls were going to watch the monitor, which had a motion alert when someone came into view in my path. We found it was a good chance that the next Saturday morning he would take the kids out around the pool. We were hoping that. It was a warm, beautiful day. And the agents prepared for that, had their bathing suits all ready to go. And about 11 a.m., the father came out of his condo with the kids, the girlfriend, and they had towels. And apparently they were headed to the pool. The agents waited a few minutes and then followed them to the pool. The goal was to be able to have some interaction with the children, who were very cute and outgoing. Within an hour, the agents were playing with the kids. As a father and girlfriend, it didn't give them much attention since the kids seemed to be taken care of. Later in the afternoon, the agents were able to have a conversation with the father. The girlfriend had come back to the condo. And in that conversation, when the kids came up, the agent said, I just love kids. If you ever need a babysitter, let me know. Gave him a phone number, a condo number. He looked at it and said, wow, this is great. You're just across from my unit. It would work out great. Now, from this meeting, over the next several weeks, our agents took care of the kids multiple times, were in and out of his condo, observing drug activity, drug paraphernalia, other things that should not have been going on with these children there. They were also there at times when the kids weren't there. They built a close relationship with his father. They were out in the car when he had the kids with his wild driving times. All of this was being documented on film and being recorded. And then we would send in some other female agents hang around the pool and create all kinds of conversation. No one ever suspected. He never had any idea that he was being taken. After several weeks of taping and with the agent's first-hand observation, we were ready to wind things down. We did a court presentation with all the reports and video with additional photos and met with the client's attorney to go over what we had. He was very surprised that we've been able to get all this inside information. Well, I said, when you make a con so big, it couldn't be anything but real. Everyone falls for it. No one ever questioned the agents about who they were. They were just next door neighbors. Some girls that were actresses and just wanting to have a good time on the side. And they loved kids. The client's attorney got a court date. And when the judge saw all the evidence and how well it was put together, he pulled the joint custody on that day and only allowed supervised visits in a block of time at the daytime. No overnights with the father. We'd pull the agents out before the court hearing so they wouldn't be there when the father came back from court. At the end of the day, the mother received full custody, was able to keep the children safe. We not only found a solution for our client, but gave her peace of mind. Her joy and thankfulness to us was worth more than all the case fees. I welcome your comments, questions, ideas, anything that you got on your mind. Please leave me a comment on any of the platforms, or you can email me directly at pi777@gmail.com. Would you help me by liking, sharing, subscribing, and you know the drill. Hit that notification bell for future posts. And I want to thank all of you that have been subscribing, driving up our subscriptions, which will help us get the word out to more people and talk about more cases. And we have many ideas in the future how we want to improve our channel and the content of what we're putting out. Also, if you have a situation in your family or business which you would like to find out if a PI could help you, send me the details on that to PI at 777@gmail.com, and I will get back to you. All information is confidential. And until next time, be safe. May God bless you. May God bless your family. and may God bless America.